Members, let's now move to file item 136, Senator Leno. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 614 by Senator Leno, enact relating to Medi-Cal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill will allow California to certify peer support specialists in behavioral health under our Medi-Cal program. Peer specialists are those who use their lived experiences with mental health challenges and their recovery, along with training to benefit others who may be in a similar situation. Currently, we have no standard or definition for peer support specialists. There are numbers of other states that are already doing this, and also beneficial once we do define it and place standards into law under our Medi-Cal plan, we can then draw down 50% of the costs from the federal government. There are 30 states that have already done this. There have been no votes through the committee process. I ask for your aye vote today.
Thank you, Senator Leno. Any debate or discussion? Seeing none. Members, is there any objection to using our unanimous roll call? Seeing none. Ayes 40, noes 0. Measure passes. We'll now move to file item 152, Senator Leno. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 731 by Senator Leno, enact relating to foster care.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill will require that child welfare workers and caregivers will consider a child's gender identity when placing that child in our foster care system. We know that these children suffer greatly as a result of their differences in terms of rejection and bullying and also physical and emotional abuse. They're also at much higher rates of homelessness, abuse, depression, and suicide. So we want to make sure that all children within our care in the foster care system, irrespective of their gender identity, are respected and encouraged to reach every potential that they have, and respecting who they are will go a long way toward that end. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Leno. Members, any debate or discussion? Seeing none, is there roll call, please?
Allen? Aye. Anderson? No. Bates? Bell? Aye. Berryhill? Block? Aye. Canella? Aye. De Leon? Aye. Fuller? Gaines? Galgiani? Aye. Glazer? Aye. Hall? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hertzberg? Aye. Hill? Aye. Wesso? Aye. Huff? Jackson? Aye. Lada? Aye. Leno? Aye. Leyva? Aye. Liu? Aye. McGuire? Aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mitchell? Aye. Monning? Aye. Morlock? Morrell? No. Wynn? Nilsson? No. Pan? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Roth? Aye. Runner? No. Stone? Vidak? Aye. Wachowski? Aye. Wolk? Wolk, aye.
Secretary, call the absent members.
Bates? Berryhill? Fuller? Gaines? Huff? Morlock? No. Wynn? Stone?
Ayes 28, noes 5. Measure passes. Members, let's move now to file item 121. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 524 by Senator Lara, an act relating to care facilities.
Senator Lara.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SB 524 will define private youth treatment facilities and require them to obtain a license from the Department of Social Services to ensure the youth's health, safety, and rights are protected. Over the past few decades, hundreds of facilities have been established nationally for youth with emotional or behavioral problems nationwide and abroad. We have also seen the proliferation of camps that claim to scare the gay away or cure homosexuality. We have identified about a dozen of these facilities operating in California, but there could be actually more. These institutions exist across the state and provide services in the range of settings from residential boarding schools to military-style academies and boot camps. Parents often take their children to private youth treatment facilities looking for help. Most have no idea that many of these facilities have a history of abuse and that there is no oversight or standards of care. Institutions that receive state funding are required to be licensed by the state. However, children sent by their parents or guardians to participate in private programs do not experience the same protections. Tragically, many of the young people have experienced horrendous abuse, neglect, and even death at these unregulated institutions. SB 524 would require private residential facilities to meet basic standards of care and ensure the essential health and safety standards are met for youth living in these institutions. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Lara. Members, any debate or discussion? Seeing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. I. Anderson. I. Bates. I. Bell. I. Berryhill. Block. I. Canella. I. De Leon. Fuller. I. Gaines. Galgiani. I. Glazer. I. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. I. Hill. Hueso. Huff. Jackson. I. Lara. I. Leno. Leyva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. Morrell. Wynn. I. Nielsen. Pan. I. Pavley. I. Roth. I. Runner. Stone. Vidak. I. Wachowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Secretary, call absent members.
Berryhill. I. De Leon. I. Gaines. Hill. I. Hueso. I. Huff. I. Leno. I. Morlock. Morrell. Morlock, I. Morrell, no. Nielsen. Runner. Stone.
Ayes 35, noes 1, measure passes. Members, let's move to file item 41. 141. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 673 by Senator Lara, an act relating to hazardous waste.
Senator Lara.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. SB 673 enacts important reforms to provide accountability, transparency, and oversight measures that will improve the relationship between DTSC and the communities it is mandated to protect. It creates important additional criteria that DTSC must consider when issuing or renewing a permit for a hazardous waste facility. Recent high-profile cases involving permitted facilities have raised significant environmental justice concerns from the community surrounding the facilities that have led to criticism of the department's permitting procedures and responsiveness to the community concerns. Members, it is important that the public have faith and confidence in the regulatory agencies that are entrusted to protect their public health. This bill will go a long way to restoring the faith and improving community participation in permitting decisions for hazardous waste sites. I respectfully ask for aye votes.
Thank you, Senator Lara. Any debate or discussion? Seeing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. I. Anderson. No. Bates. No. Bell. I. Berryhill. Block. Canella. No. De Leon. I. Fuller. No. Gaines. No. Galgiani. Glazer. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. I. Hertzberg. Hill. I. Hueso. I. Huff. No. Jackson. I. Lara. I. Leno. I. Leyva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. No. Morrell. No. Wynn. No. Nielsen. No. Pan. Pavley. I, Roth. Runner. Stone. Vidak. No. Wykowski. I, Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Secretary, call the absent members.
Berryhill. Block. Berryhill, no. Block. Galgioni. Glazer. Hertzberg. Pan. I, Roth. Runner. No. Stone. No.
Ayes 21, noes 14, measure passes. Moving to motions and resolutions, without objection, Senate Rule 44 will be suspended for the Budget Committee conferees. All right, we're going to move back in the file to file item 70. Senator Hill. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 21 by Senator Hill, an act relating to the Political Reform Act of 1974.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SB 21 increases transparency within the Political Reform Act by requiring nonprofits that pay for elected official travel to disclose to the FPPC the names of the donors responsible for funding the travel. Currently, nonprofits do not have to disclose the source of travel funding, preventing the public from knowing who was behind the gift to the elected official. The bill would also require elected officials to disclose to the FPPC the destination of the travel. This is a scaled-back version of last year's SB 831. I've only included the transparency provision to address the governor's veto. I respectfully ask for an aye vote, members.
Members, any debate or discussion? Seeing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen. Aye. Anderson. No. Bates. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. DeLeon. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines.
Aye.
Aye. Galgioni. Aye. Glazer. Aye. Hall. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hertzberg. Hill. Aye. Wesso. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Lada. Leno. Leyva. Aye. Liu. Aye. McGuire. Aye. Mendoza. Aye. Mitchell. Monning. Mitchell, aye. Monning. Aye. Morlock. Aye. Morrell. Wynn. Aye. Nilsson. Aye. Pan. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Runner. Aye. Stone. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Wykowski. Aye. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Secretary, call the absent members.
Hertzberg. Aye. Wesso. Lada. Leno. Morrell. Aye.
Ayes 36, noes 0, noes 1. Measure passes. Let's see, where are we now?
71?
Members, let's move to file item 71. Senator Mitchell. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 23 by Senator Mitchell, an act relating to CalWorks.
Thank you
Senator
very much,
Mitchell.
Mr. President and members. I'm proud to be able to, for yet another year, bring before you Senate Bill 23, a measure that seeks to remove the ineffective family cap in place for families receiving CalWorks. This bill has been the subject of intense discussions really over the past 15, 20 years. I've carried it 3 years that I've served here in the legislature, culminated in nearly 100 organizations taking a support position and calling for this unjust law's repeal. The repeal of the maximum family grant policy has been identified by leading researchers and academics as a key way to address California's dismal poverty rate, which many of you know is at its highest point since the mid-1990s, with nearly 1 out of 4 of California's children living in poverty. I'd like to note that the MFG policy was passed before a lifetime limit on aid existed, before 30 hours of work was required, and when the maximum benefit paid under CalWORKs was 80% of the federal poverty line. Lifetime limits for CalWORKs welfare to work is now a mere 24 months, and the maximum benefit paid is 40% of the federal poverty line. So clearly, as you can see, since this policy was put into place, welfare reform has created a very different system under which CalWORKs beneficiaries are now trying to exist. Again, the benefits we're talking about are already substantially diminished from their 1992 level. Under the MFG, a family is forced to spread their meager resources further and therefore slipping deeper into poverty, as low as 26% of the federal poverty level. And I'll remind all of us, in statute, the CalWORKs program states that it is designed to keep children out of poverty. Clearly, we're not doing a very good job of that. The maximum family grant rule actually undermines the CalWORKs program. It threatens families' economic security and is a failed policy in every sense. That's why approximately half of the other states across our country who also had family cap policies have reversed them. I'm proud to say that this bill has enjoyed bipartisan support in its policy hearing and has been supported by groups as diverse as Planned Parenthood as well as the Catholic Conference. For 15 years, we have denied basic needs assistance to our most vulnerable citizens, extremely poor infants, and we have no evidence that family caps have affected birth rates, which was supposedly the intention of the original policy. Yet over the same time, we've seen ample evidence of California's families slipping deeper into poverty. Again, what this bill would do would be to stop punishing poor children for having the misfortune of being born too close to their sibling, and it would prohibit the state from inserting itself into the private, reproductive, and medical decisions of families who are poor and seeking temporary basic assistance to help their children. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. This is one of the key elements of the Women's Caucus Stronger California initiative. And part of the reason for that is that during the past several years, research has documented the long-term and expensive costs of living in and growing up in poverty. The research repeatedly has demonstrated that early investments in moving children and families out of poverty brings long-term benefit to the individuals and the state's economy as a whole. At a time when California's economy has experienced significant recovery and the fiscal health of the state is vastly improved, many Californians, particularly women and children, continue to be worse off than they were before the Great Recession. I want to repeat that. They continue to be worse off. In fact, statistics show that the top 1% has increased its earnings and wealth by 25%, while the average Californian and the low-income Californian has actually seen a drop of 1%. This is not progress. This measure, SB 23, will repeal CalWORKs' policy of excluding a child from receiving cash assistance if he or she was conceived while the mother was already receiving aid. This backward policy has no proven effect in terms of reducing pregnancies, and instead requires a woman to disclose highly personal information about her choice of contraception if she hopes to receive aid for a new child. Think about that. Is this the kind of discussion that you feel you should have to have with a stranger? I doubt it. It's estimated that repealing the maximum family grant policy would reduce childhood poverty rates by over 7%. For that reason, colleagues, I urge your vote. I vote on this measure.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Any further debate or discussion? Seeing none, Senator Mitchell, would you like to close?
I ask for your aye vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Great, thank you. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen? Aye. Anderson? Aye. Bates? Bell? Aye. Berryhill? Block? Aye. Cannella? De Leon? Aye. Fuller? Gaines. Galgioni. I. Glazer. I. Hall. I. Hancock. I. Hernandez. Hertzberg. I. Hill. I. Wesso. Huff. Jackson. I. Lada. Leno. Leyva. I. Liu. I. McGuire. I. Mendoza. I. Mitchell. I. Monning. I. Morlock. Morrell. Wynn. I. Nielsen. Pan. I. Pavley. I. Roth. Runner. Stone. No. Vidak. No. Wykowski. I. Wolk. Wolk, aye.
Secretary, call absent members.
Bates. Berryhill. Canella. Fuller. Gaines. Hernandez. I. Wesso. I. Huff. Lada. Leno. Morlock. Morrell. No. Nielsen. No. Roth. No. Runner. Block, no.
Ayes 25, no 6. Measure passes. Members, let's move forward to file item 72. Senator Roth. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 25 by Senator Roth, an act relating to local government finance.
Senator Roth.
Can't work my mic. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 25 is a bill addressing the funding problem for the most recently incorporated cities in the state of California. As you may know, prior to 1935, cities received funding from personal property tax on vehicles, and the tax was locally set. After 1935, the state established a vehicle license fee, funding at a set rate of 2%. Around 1998, the vehicle license fee was cut from 2% to 0.65%. It impacted all cities, and the difference between 0.65% and 2% was then backfilled by the general fund. In 2004, the general fund backfill was legislatively replaced by property tax. The problem, there was no new funding provided for unincorporated areas which wished to incorporate. In 2006, then Assemblymember John Laird authored a bill to provide the vehicle license fee funding to new cities that incorporated in this state. And between 2008 and 2011, 4 cities incorporated with this additional vehicle license fee funding: the cities of Menifee, Wildomar, Eastvale, and Jurupa Valley. In 2011, some of you may remember, as part of the implementation of AB 109 and then Proposition 30, the vehicle license fee funding for cities was eliminated. The impact on those cities that incorporated prior to 2006, nothing. They had property tax. The impact on the 4 new cities, well, the city of Jurupa Valley lost 46% of its budget as the legislation took effect 2 days after the city incorporated. This bill simply restores funding to the new cities at the same level as that provided to all other cities in the state of California through the property tax. This bill does not fund any future incorporations. The vote in Governance and Finance was bipartisan and unanimous, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Roth. Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to applaud my colleague from Riverside County in bringing this bill forward again as we struggled. I was on the Board of Supervisors at the time when the 4 most recent cities that went to incorporation were denied funding as an unintended consequence of some budget issues that happened here in Sacramento. I represent the city of Wildomar, formerly the city of Menifee. The city of Jurupa Valley certainly has been hit the hardest, along with Eastvale. And the 4 cities played by the rules. They played by the rules and did all their economic studies to prove that they could stand on their own with the augmentations that the state has given to every other city that has gone through the process. And so I strongly urge your aye vote to make sure that these cities have the ability to prosper. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Senator Stone. Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this bill. I want to affirm the senator from Riverside County for his hard work in addressing this, what I would call a sucker punch to these 4 new cities with Senate Bill 89, which occurred in 2011. His multiple efforts over the years need to be commended because he is trying to rectify this injustice. And it was also a very harsh impact on the County of Orange. So I stand up as a victim as well of SB 89, but have always felt that these 4 cities should be made whole. And I hope this unfortunate tactic or shifting of funds doesn't happen in the future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Morlock. Any further debate or discussion? Seeing none, Senator Roth, we'd like to close.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I simply want to thank my colleagues for their support, and again, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Roth. Members, is there any objection to using our unanimous roll call? Seeing none, ayes 37, noes 0. Measure passes.